Bitcoin is showing some very dangerous signs right here in the charts, guys. And in today's video, we are going to go over the Bitcoin price, which has been breaking below some key support levels. Too bad. We're going to have a look at the stablecoin dominance. We're going to have a look at some altcoins because there are some interesting things right now showing in some altcoin charts that I want to talk about in today's video. And actually, we're going to talk about very in-depth market analysis on what we can expect over the next coming weeks, months, and even over the next coming years. So guys, let's jump straight into it. Let's start as always with the Bitcoin chart, and what we can see right here is we have the yellow line, and that is the 50-week moving average. And during this bull market that we have seen in 2003, 4 and 5, we actually seen that the 50-week moving average was the line of support. Right, every time, and that was different, slightly different in this bull market. Here it was the 20-week and the 21-weekly EMA. But in this bull market, things went a little bit slower in terms of acceleration. If you would compare it, for example, with this one, this goes faster. This had a different moving average. But right now, guys, breaking below this moving average really does indicate, most likely, that the top for this cycle, at least for Bitcoin, is in. And that we are going to see a time where it either goes sideways or go downwards in a bear market. And I think it's also a little bit the consensus now, and maybe a little bit too much the consensus that we first in the shorter term time frame have to bounce before we are able to go lower. But yeah, you guys, you never know, because sometimes when Bitcoin drops and we are in a bear market, it can really significantly drop. So not to scare you guys, but from the top right here till the first point of bounce was a 52% correction. Well, if we would take that from here, that would mean that we would go to $58,000 before we are actually even seeing the first legitimate bounce. So, but not to scare you guys, because this was also very different. This was way more acceleration in a short amount of time. So the further it comes up in a more accelerated, more extreme way, the harsher it has to come down, right? So the bull market that we have seen right here has actually been a pretty stable bull market, where we have, like, of course, we had some acceleration, but we go up, we go sideways, so consolidation. Here we have probably the biggest acceleration. Then we have also some time to recalibrate after this acceleration. And here, you know, it went a little bit slower. We also did not have a blow off top. We did not really have mass euphoria. At least that's what I think. Maybe the opinions are a little bit divided on that, but we have seen nothing like this or nothing like this. This is really these periods where most of the world is really talking about crypto. And I think that is still coming. Later today, I will publish a video. It actually will be published almost right after this video on my personal channel, where I'm actually going to talk about the wealth transfer, because I think in terms of timing, it is pretty clear when the wealth transfer exactly will happen. And it's up to you how you are going to make your personal strategy around that. But you have to think about that, of course. You know, how long can you stretch your time, and do you want to be positions, or do you want to take a little bit more risks? But yeah, guys, let's go to the more short-term time frame chart on Bitcoin. For me, this is also definitely a very clear breakdown. We broke below the 50-week moving average. We have the megaphone pattern. We broke the megaphone pattern to the downside. So the last hope of this being support to really jump up also got thrown away, to be honest. Something to note is that if we measure from this bottom till this top, we are right now at the 61.80%. Guys, that is actually very important, because that means that this is definitely a place where we could see a bounce. And if you look at all the things like the sentiment right now, the price has been going down pretty hard, being at the 61.80%. Also kind of a little bit the last line of support, right, from this move. This would be an interesting place to bounce, and if we do not bounce at this place, we could actually see, yeah, Bitcoin doing some extreme move to the downside. Okay, let's go to the stablecoin dominance. This also confirms this idea a little bit, because we have this channel right here, and we are almost at the resistance, right? But we are not there yet. We haven't touched the resistance like we did right here or we did right here. So we are not there yet. So that could mean that we could have this one last push to the upside into that resistance and then turn around and then get a very significant bounce on Bitcoin, but especially, that's what I personally believe, especially on altcoins, because I think a lot of altcoin charts are looking really good if you compare it to the Bitcoin chart. And later in this video I'm going to show you one of the best looking altcoin charts that is out there, I believe. Maybe it's also nice to mention, guys, that we are on day 54 of the 60-day cycle, so that would kind of coincide with getting, you know, one last push late into the 60-day cycle on the stablecoin dominance. Is one last drop in the Bitcoin price late in the 60-day cycle to form a 60-day cycle low and to get the strength of the early new 60-day cycle. Okay, we go to the next chart. This is the this is the altcoin chart, the crypto total market cap without Ethereum and Bitcoin. What do we see right here? Well, we are really on last line support, guys. We are on the hovering on support basically. But what's interesting is that we on the relative strength index, we really form kind of like a falling wedge formation, and there is a little bit hope here, but there's nothing confirmed. But we have a higher low on the relative strength index while we form a lower low in the price. So on the daily time frame, there potentially is a bullish divergence forming, but I gotta be honest, guys, you have to be careful with looking at these divergences, because you want to have a confirmation in the chart when you are looking at these divergences, because often we can look at these divergences and they can serve us as a confirmation bias, right? Well, sometimes they can be a little bit confusing, because who says that this one is completed? Maybe it still goes lower and then we form a higher low. That can be a bullish divergence later, right? So the bullish divergence is not confirmed directly with a higher low and a lower low, or the other way around, of course. It is also confirmed when we see a break of a significant resistance. So for example, this resistance would mean a break of significant resistance, a change in market structure from a declining channel. I can show you guys on the daily time on the 4-hour time frame. Most beautiful would be to break this one to the upside. But what we do notice here is that there is a lot of space to go up again. We have retraced a lot. So some charts are actually pointing to the bearishness of Bitcoin with breaking all these levels. But if we read between the lines, we can also see the potential of a bounce coming very, very soon, probably this Q4 in Bitcoin, but I think especially in altcoins. Okay, let's go to the liquidation heat maps. What does this data tell us? Liquidity is definitely above us. At least that's what it looks like, right? Liquidity is above us. So I would also argue that this chart is again confirming that most likely we are going to see a bounce. If we have a look at the Will Portal charts, then it is a little bit sketchy, because yesterday we had a very nice declining selling pressure with the momentum indicators coming up, but the profile actually changed, because right now when we come down, we see an increase of selling pressure without even having a bounce in the price. This generally is a little bit of a warning signal, because here you can see every time the intensity of the red increases, it comes down. But normally it should increase on the way up. On a bounce, it should increase and not going down and then increase. That's actually quite warning signal, to be honest. So we got to be very careful right here, because maybe Bitcoin is going to see another drop to the downside with the stablecoin dominance going into that resistance. So be careful of that if you are short-term trading. Now, guys, we are going to actually one of the more bullish charts, I have to say, at this specific moment. And that is Ethereum against Bitcoin. So why is this chart bullish? Because we actually have seen a very big correction in the relative strength index. So if we look at this low and the relative strength index right here and this low, we have a very big higher low in the price, but a lower low in the relative strength index, and we have a declining resistance that the relative strength index actually broke. And what we normally see, guys, often is that the price follows the structure of the relative strength index. which in this case would mean a breakout to the upside. This is a very bullish signal. And why is this so bullish, guys? Because Ethereum didn't had its shine this whole cycle. Of course, it made like a slightly all-time high, slightly higher than the previous all-time high, but there has not been any ETH hype, right? There has not been a period of time where ETH just were rallying and people were really hyper focused on Ethereum. It was looking extremely bullish, and then the Ethereum ecosystem also goes up. We haven't seen that. We have seen some crazy rallies with some different altcoins, but it was not Ethereum. Of course, we did have a bounce, but we are coming also from quite a crazy capitulation period, right? So this bounce was nice, but it was not yet stealing really the show. And normally in previous bull markets, we have definitely seen Ethereum in both two previous bull markets really stealing the show after Bitcoin made its rally, right? So maybe this can be an early sign that we are going to see something like this, where we formed the low right here. We had the first initial bounce, then we have the correction, which means that right now we could be going into a big move for Ethereum. I'm not sure. This bull market definitely looks a little bit different than the other bull markets, but yeah, I think this is a very bullish chart, because if Ethereum indeed would rally against Bitcoin, it would bring a lot of confidence and a lot of speculation into altcoins back, because Ethereum is if Ethereum goes up, it will bring the whole altcoin market with it, the speculation over there. So that's definitely very interesting, and we are already seeing Ethereum breaking out on the relative strength index. Then let's have a look at the Bitcoin dominance. Is this confirming the story? Well, it's a little bit difficult to say, because right now we are still on somewhat of a support zone right here, but it looks like we are actually have quite some space to come down right here. If we can lose this support level right here, I definitely don't see any reason why we cannot see a way lower Bitcoin dominance. Looks like we also do have some support broken on the relative strength index. We have a lot of space to come down right here on the daily time frame. We can look at it at the 4-hour chart as well. Definitely running into some support right here, and I would actually also argue that it kind of would make sense in this bounce to see, of course, first Bitcoin bounce, and then because Bitcoin bounces, confidence comes a little bit back, and that will bring more liquidity to Ethereum and to altcoins. So it would make sense right here to go first a little bit up, get a little bit more attention on Bitcoin before it actually can move lower. So that's something to take in mind. But guys, this is basically the whole picture of the markets that I have right now. And many things actually also happened since last video. I actually made a video about the FIRO token. It's a really old token, and since I made that video, actually that coin doubled in price, almost doubled in price. That was actually pretty crazy. But I think privacy tokens, which FIRO is one of the privacy tokens, I think they will definitely become very valuable in the future. And I got a comment as well, like, why do we need all these privacy tokens? Well, of course we do not need all these privacy tokens, but you got to understand how the markets work, because the markets are going in hype and imagination, right? If there's suddenly a world where you can very easily imagine that the privacy tokens are going to be very valuable, and they actually can be very valuable with all these crazy governments and control and surveillance that's going on, there could be a big need for privacy, especially people moving around the planet, right? Because they want to be private because of the tyrannical way that what's going on in the world. So then suddenly out of nothing, the privacy tokens become very valuable, and it will be a class on its own. Privacy tokens will be a class on its own, and there will always be a need for people to use certain privacy tokens. If not for the normal people, it will be for the people in power. I actually think, guys, that for the people in power, it would be even more like a utopia to have these privacy tokens. Why? Because imagine if they have privacy tokens, things can be private, so to say, but they still control the blockchain. Okay, maybe then it's not 100% private, but maybe they can have some backdoor so you cannot see it in the front end, but in the back end, I'm not really sure. But I can imagine, guys, that a lot of funding that goes to the government doesn't want to be tracked and traced, right? If you sending your tax money to the government and you can just trace exactly where that's going, and then you can map out these structures where you can see, okay, 30% of the tax money is going there, 20% of the tax money is going to war, then you can see maybe 30% of the tax money is going to paying back interest. If you then get these infographics, like, it would be so clear to see, like, wow, we are getting screwed all over. Like, why do we have to pay 30% of our tax money to interest, to debt? That people going to start to ask questions. Like, I don't think they want that, right? So I think they will have a lot of benefits for privacy tokens, to be honest. There has to be some in these, like in that structure, in this pyramid structure that we are seeing on this planet, there has to be a form of control, a form of surveillance. And, the higher in the pyramid, the more power and control that institution wants to have. So a completely decentralized something, I don't think will work for them. There will always be certain backdoors or certain control mechanisms to have control over the system. If it's not quantum computer that can influence the blockchain, the ledger and the blockchain, of course, if it's not the backdoors in the code, if it's not other things, that there are going to be things that are going to apply control and surveillance, because that is, at least that's what they're going to try, right? That's what they're going to try. It's on us whether we are going to accept any of that or not as a collective, right? That's very important. But yeah, privacy tokens are doing good. One token that I've also seen, guys, and this is also what I want to share with you, with people that are talking, for example, about the bear market. If we, for example, look at this chart, and this is Verge. It was a very popular token in 2017, not so popular right now, and we can see that this one is kind of like setting up right here. So we have a clear uptrend going on, right? Clear uptrend, high lows, high highs, after a form of correction. This token was way high. It was way higher, and in the 2017 was a really popular token. Also has some privacy features, if I'm not mistaken. But for me, it's difficult to imagine when we go to a 1 year bear market, what is going to happen with all these tokens. Are they just going, then that means all of these tokens will just have to go to zero, and that's definitely possible. But if we look at the story of the wealth transfer, and I don't really see, it's all possible, maybe because there also been some stories about like big crashes and stuff coming. But when I'm thinking of the wealth transfer, and when I'm thinking of the timing, and when I'm looking at the charts, and this is maybe one of the examples, but I think Litecoin is of course a very good example. If we are going to go in a bear market, I would not expect Litecoin to break below the support right here. I would not expect that, and statistically, that also has a lower chance, because we have a consolidation pattern of 7 years, which we've entered from an uptrend. So the chances that this breaks out to the upside is actually like 70% or something. If you look at the technical analysis in the theoretic books, so to say. So the worst case scenario, what I believe, is going back to the support and then break out later, which would completely fit in with the wealth transfer timeline for me as well, being an important year in 2027. But is it a certainty that we are going to do this? For me, it's definitely not a certainty. And it could also explain a little bit the fact that we have not seen this crazy euphoria in the price of Bitcoin, which means that the correction to the downside will also be less extreme. If the correction to the if the pump to the upside is not that big, it's like everything in this universe always has the law of polarity, right? It goes from one pendulum swing to the other pendulum swing. That's why I'm also a bit surprised why we haven't seen euphoria yet, because this was pretty depressing, right? This was a crazy moment when FTX collapsed. That was actually worldwide news. It was on the mainstream media. Like, it was really crazy news. So we haven't seen an opposite reaction of that yet, and that I find interesting. But you can also argue, of course, that might come later, that we have some form of, where we are going a bit into a correction, and then later we are going to get higher, or we're going to get a little bit more sideways, and then later we are going to get higher. It's going to be difficult to know the exact scenario right here. I think it's very important to position yourself in the charts that you think are looking good and the charts that you think are beneficial. And if those structures change, you can always, depending on your personal strategy, make certain decisions. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it. Actually, I quickly want to share you the Litecoin Bitcoin chart, because this is another thing that I find so interesting, right? So for me, this chart looks just extremely bullish. Nothing has changed. I brought up this chart many times, but it's still going up. It's still going up very slowly, but we have this clear bullish divergence. We already broke the resistance. I think this can just really catch some momentum right here. Any moment, right? I would highly doubt this will do something like this. I would highly doubt that. It's possible, definitely. Everything is possible in the markets. There are no guarantees, very important. But for this thing to go up has for me a very much higher likelihood than to go down. So that's why I really like right now to be positioned, or I'm more comfortable to be positioned in Litecoin, and I'm not feeling the urge to sell, even though the US dollar pair is going slightly down right here. I think this chart just looks really good, and yeah, we can see similar moves like we have seen with Dash, I believe so. So yeah, let's hope that is going to happen, right? We all don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty in the markets. How the future is going to see exactly is going to be very difficult. But I definitely believe, guys, that crypto will not go. Crypto will be the new .com era. So what we have seen with the .com era, where all the internet companies go up and go to crazy amounts. There was a multi-trillion-dollar market cap for the internet companies. If I'm not mistaken, it was 5 to 6 trillion US dollars, right? Maybe 4 trillion, maybe 4, 5, 6 trillion US dollars for the .com bubble market. And afterwards, a lot of new dollars have been printed. So we should see, if we want to have something from a similar size, similar caliber, we need to see more trillion US dollars into the crypto space in order to get the same cycle hype that we had around the .com bubble. While I think right now, because the .com bubble was about the internet, it was a new way of communicating, we are right now working with finance, digital finance, disrupting the way we know finance. We are transacting value in this world. I think the hype and the bubble around this can become way higher than what we have seen with the internet. And I think in terms of timing, if we have a look at the Shemitah cycles and the Jubilee cycle and the wealth transfer idea, I think it actually makes sense that it will get bigger than what we have seen with the .com bubble. And that will mean that we are going to see some crazy high valuations in the charts. And I think some charts are definitely already showing that. For example, Dash, right? Like already showing breaking a 7-year long resistance. And if this thing then eventually, goes a little bit down and then, does something like this, we could be reaching the target right here in late 2027 or even in the beginning 2028. I don't know, like this chart doesn't have to go directly to the target right here, right? So it might go a little bit like maybe it does something like this. We don't know it. But the fact that it broke this macro resistance of 7 years and it did that right here shows to me high likelihood to go eventually to this. And will that be 2025? I doubt it. Because that would mean that we in this time period we have to reach $1,000. That's just pretty unlikely, right? It is crypto, so like sometimes when it goes, it really goes. So it's never impossible, and that's also what I'm trying to say. Maybe we should get rid a little bit of the black and white thinking, Because if you right now bet 100% on a bear market and you're going completely back into stables, then when you have these opportunities or these positions, they do break out, you kind of like maybe miss big move. But then on the other hand, if you are fully positioned, right now we have some very clear signals that we do enter a bear market, because we are the first time right now breaking below the 50-week moving average. And that's not the only sign, right? But yeah, in the shorter term time frame, there are some signs for a bounce. So I believe a bounce is coming to Bitcoin also because sentiment is completely crushed. I think altcoins looking a bit better. Maybe it goes a little bit lower, tapping into that resistance before this is going to turn around again. But yeah, guys, that is basically the analysis of today's video. I'm pretty optimistic, especially when you look at the timeline until the end of 2027. I'm very optimistic. But of course, in between, there are going to be periods where we will have choppy price action, we will have corrections, and yeah, we might have entered one of these periods right now. But it still needs to show, guys. It still needs to show. Also, how is this bounce going to look in Bitcoin? Are we going to get rejected from the 50-week moving average? That's, of course, very bad signal, similar like we have the previous start of the bear market, right? So these are all things you want to consider, but this signal on its own is very bearish for Bitcoin and just shows it lost momentum and it's moving differently than it has done in the past couple of years. So we gotta really accept this. Guys, that was it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Just a reminder, if you are trading Bitcoin, you want to use a decentralized exchange, go to Apex Omni. Apex Omni right now has a big airdrop running until the end of December. So everything that you do over on that exchange, whether it's trading, whether it's depositing, whether it is staking, there are some more things you can do as well. You will generate points with your wallet. And then at the end of December, that will be the end where they are going to count the points, the pool of the points, and then they will distribute an airdrop based on those points. So that's pretty interesting. And if you join with the affiliate link down below, you will get 10% on top of your points, because we are basically a team. Our affiliate has a team, and they will get 10% extra points during this campaign, which is of course really good. And I don't know what that airdrop eventually will be. I hope it will be some token. They are not that clear about that yet, but if we look at some airdrops in the past, like Hyperliquid, then there is definitely possible to get some serious cash out of these airdrops. Okay, guys, I want to wish every single one of you a beautiful day today, and I hope to see every single one of you in the next video. Bye bye.